Alright guys, Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. What I've got for you today is an analysis to Gacharic. I keep wanting to say Gachric. Please let me know how to pronounce it. Gachric Spin, Gachric Spin, Gachric Spin, let's go with that. And I thought the song was called Ace, but I believe it's actually called Glow. So I'm going to do lots of start-stopby, lots of posy things and break down the song. I've got my guitar here, so hopefully I can demystify some of the more musical elements, and the rhythmic ones, well, we'll just come to those in due course. As always, a big shout out and a massive thank you to Rabbi Rabs, Glenn Kelly, Stephen Williams, Rebecca Hay, Falcon Sooner and Dales Ghost for the support on Patreon. It's ultimately the support through that platform that makes these videos possible, so if you yourself have the means and inclination, make sure to check out patreon.com/JBFmusic. But enough from me, let's go into this one. Yeah, so right on the start here, we've got the distortion on the vocals. So there's different types of distortion. To clear this up, when you're speaking or singing, you can add in a fry like that. You can fry your vocals, man, you know. So it's basically kind of, you know if you go, like a grumbly noise, it's doing that. That's kind of a natural distortion that you can add on yourself. When people are kind of belting loud, kind of high notes, it's sometimes easier to switch into it there. If you take someone like Axl Rose, or I think actually both singers out of AC/DC, they've got quite a kind of raspy, hard palate thing. They're just kind of pushing the air to that part of their mouth. What's happened here is they're clipping the signal. So I have explained this before in a previous video, which I'll link to up there, but I'll go into a wee bit more detail here. Okay, so I have on here an entirely clean sound. So there's no gain, no distortion. I'm using my guitar to explain this rather than try to do it in post-production, because that might get a bit messy, but a rough idea I can maybe do it. About right? So that's your kind of clean vocals. What I'm going to do here is put in a drive pedal. So without it, we have a nice clean sound. I'm going to put in a really small amount of drive. There's one here in particular, tape distortion, right? So this should add in just a little hair of distortion, which should sound a bit more like it did on the vocals there. So without, I'm going to put it on. So you might hear it's a bit more kind of muffled, it's adding a bit of warmth to it. If I slowly add the drive in like I did there, you can start to hear this kind of hiss, this kind of slight crackle. What I'm doing is riding the volume here so it doesn't get too loud as I put a little bit more of the drive on. So again, if we had it clean, then we start to add in the drive. And I'll put this up a lot more in terms of the drive, more of the effect. Put the level down so it's not too loud. Right, you can hear quite a lot of it there, so let's bring this down a little bit. Take it off. So they probably used an effect not dissimilar to this tape distortion on the vocals to get that little kind of fizzy, kind of hissy sound going on, where it's kind of politely distorted and a bit warm without it being too kind of thrashy or scrapey. So I'll pop that back so you can hear it in action. See, you can hear it there kind of fizzing up on the vocals now. I don't think it's on all of them, I think it's maybe just on one of them. There's one of them sounds clean to me, and if they do have a distortion on, they've maybe used different types of distortion. So one of them a bit fizzier, a bit hissier, one of them a bit more rounded, and that way you don't have two sounds that are too similar competing for the same sort of space in the mix. And then we've got that vocal hook just being repeated while everything comes in with this big kind of thunking double bass drum, it sounds like. Really hammering away on the double kick drum. Yeah. hearing something like that on the synth, which is I kind of mentioned the flat 5 in my reaction to this, if that's allowed to exist. So a quick note on that, which might not exist in the video, I might edit this out. The reaction videos I've done to these guys before have just been totally blocked, so I can't do anything with them. I'm hoping, because there's lots of starty-stoppy and analysis, this one will kind of get through. If there's not a reaction to them of me just listening to the song, that's why it's been blocked. Hopefully it's not. And you can still hear that distortion on there, yeah? A thing that they do that's really cool is they're overlapping the vocals. So instead of one person stopping and another one starting, they kind of overlap a bit. So one's ending as one just kind of comes in. So that hey is being held while the next vocal comes in, which is really cool. So in effect, if you listen to very closely, if you listen to songs where there's just one singer, you can sometimes hear where they've done that in the recording, where they've overdubbed, so it doesn't get kind of cut off. Whereas live, you just have to decide which bits, you know, you have to cut it short or kind of miss out the bit where you come in. Usually it gets cut short and they just kind of come in with the next bit. So it's really cool that the band's able to kind of do that live, let the vocals kind of overlap each other a bit. And again, there was a slight overlap between them when they transitioned. And it's also interesting kind of passing it between the vocals, which I hadn't clocked before. The guitar here panned on my left, it should be your left as well, but camera flip swings around the wrong way, so I apologise. Very tinny, very scratchy sound, very kind of punk. And then we went back to the first singer with the keyboardist harmonising over it, so it's almost like kind of passing on the baton and then back to where it was. Cool, and there we've got like kind of stabs with the guitars and the drums and going down to the vocals, and obviously the bass is doing the stabs as well. And then a kind of reggae sound with it looked like some maybe slapping there from nowhere. The tinny sound here works really well with what I'm hearing. I think we're maybe in a G minor. So that kind of scrapey tone in the guitar. It's kind of like ska punk, like something that the Clash might have inspired, like your Real Big Fish or one of those sorts of bands. Yeah, because there's some weird bass slaptastic stuff going on there. Yeah, okay, this is just madness. This is like it's a weird transition. It's totally unnecessary but brilliant at the same time. Cool, and then into your chorus where they're layering the harmonies. Guitars are strumming away. Yeah, so this is something I'd mentioned in the reaction. What's incredibly cool about the backing vocals is they're just coming in on one note a lot of the time to make it pop. So it's almost like a gang vocal that you get in rap. I think there might have been a group called Jurassic 5 that used to like do the harmonies as well, but just on one note. I might be misremembering that. J5 I think it was. So it's really cool to just make one note pop, because typically in choruses you harmonise in what's called thirds. If you think about kind of pop punk songs, that's probably the best example I can give, where there's a vocal going on and then of course another one comes in and then they harmonise in thirds. Aye, and it alluded to in the reaction something about MIDI controllers and that sort of thing. So with the distortion that's coming on the vocals, no one on stage I can see is turning anything on or off. So there might be a tech at the back who's pushing buttons at the right time to turn the effects on and off. What they might be doing, which is what a lot of kind of modern bands do these days, is have everything controlled by like a MIDI setup. So there's basically a laptop that's got the program. This can go into extreme detail, so it can have all the backing tracks or the click tracks, whatever you want to call them. It can even have the lighting. It could have the guitar's pedals changing and all sorts of stuff like that. So no one needs to think about anything, provided the computer works. Everything's just done. Yeah, there is obviously a bit of risk involved there, because if it doesn't work, the whole show's kind of kaput. I'm sure last year or the year before there was some sort of controversy about like a modern metal band that had to cancel some shows because their laptop died and they couldn't play without it. So I would suspect here, because the guitarist has a pedal board and she's changing settings manually, they probably have a tech at the back that's putting effects on and off. Remembering whose vocal to distort and where might be quite tricky, so there might be a kind of program set up for that at least. Unless it's done in post-production, but I think they probably would do it live. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. They've almost taken a boy or girl band approach to the vocals, but put it over this like manic rock outfit. And by that I mean, if you take any kind of a child of the 90s in many ways, so you kind of your Spice Girls and your Boyzones and your Take That's and your Backstreet Boys, they kind of have backing vocals more akin to what's going on here. Cool, and just like stops like that are incredibly effective in terms of your dynamics, because there's a lot going on. So if you're giving people a sonic assault for the full duration of the song, it feels a lot longer than 3.5 minutes, because they cram an awful lot into here. If you're just barraging people with that non-stop, it's going to be a bit much, so you want these stops, these dynamic shifts. Yeah, I'm trying to pick out this little synth noise. Something like that. I don't think that's quite right. It gets louder later on, so listen out for it more. But what's worthwhile pointing out with that synth sound is it's got a very like drum and bass synth timbre that she's using, so it makes it sound more modern, whereas if it was a guitar playing that, you know, particularly in the context of kind of, it sounds more bluesy. So phrasing it, you know, putting that on a synthesizer with that kind of 90s drum and bass sound is what I think, early 2000s is what I'd associate that with. It just gives it a slightly more modern edge. And there, that was a really cool blinking, you'll miss. Little hand claps going on. Yeah, so there's some sort of click or something going on. I paused there because I can see there's like a tablet or an iPad type thing next to the drummer here. So she might actually have samples loaded into that, and it's telling her what samples are loaded in. It could be a set list. I'm not familiar, I can't recognize what bit of technology that is off the top of my head. So I suspect it's maybe a sampler. What's also interesting is the mixing desk is right behind her, so I wonder if she kind of messes about with that. So that's maybe just her mixing desk. With the setup this big, there's a lot of things that can be done. Like you can see next to the Korg there's also a laptop, so that might be used for some sounds, it might be used for something else, I really don't know. There's a lot of mystery here in terms of how things could be done. So that mixing desk could be for them to get a mix for their in-ear monitors. It could just be for the drummer if there's a lot of instruments going on. She might have her own mixing desk, I don't know. I suspect it's probably going to be for the whole band. But if you are, slight tangent here, if you've got a drum kit, you've got some sort of sample pad. I'll bring up a picture of these just now. Basically, they normally have kind of a few pads that you can hit and it triggers a sample, which might just be a hand clap. It might be a orchestral thing that's in time to a click track. It could be anything. You could put vocals on there, and when you hit it, it triggers a sample and it plays. If you've got that and an acoustic kit, or an acoustic kit with some, you know, like an electric snare drum or something like that, you're not going to hear those samples unless you got some sort of mixer. So you could take it to the sound tech and you could get them to mix it for you, or you could take control of it and kind of mix it yourself, which is what I suspect's happening here. A lot of guesswork on my part, so do correct me in the comments. That was really cool. There's a huge kind of growling bass tone over the claps and just the stripped down drums and vocals there. The guitar incredibly scratchy here, particularly in comparison to that bass, and lovely little harmonies coming in too. It's a lot packed in. And back to that kind of hook, and you can hear the synth hook coming in over the top as well. And a really angular guitar part there, almost kind of like a Mars Volta type thing. And again, just like nailing these harmonies out of nowhere. Switching over the keys there to like a more traditional piano sound. So I believe what happened here is a key change. Yeah. So see how that feels, I'll put it back, see how it feels more triumphant. Just a bit manic, and that triumphant sound. Okay, so that's a really weird key change. They basically gone into this, where was I on an E flat minor to a G major, which is, it's just bizarre. They basically modulated up a semitone, but instead of sticking from a E flat minor to an E minor, the tonality is major, the relative major. This sounds like nonsense. It's a weird modulation, but it's what gives it that extra boost of energy. Essentially a semitone modulation, but switching the relative minor to the relative major. And you can hear again those scratchy and distorted vocals coming through. And just a big chorus with this kind of these are like the common pop chords. If you've seen Axis of Awesome before, I'll link to it with the eye up there. But this chord's called a 6 chord. This chord is a 4, a 1, and a 5. The reason for that is this note here is basically home, and if we play do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, we give each note a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is back to the 1. So the 6th note, build a chord on that. The 4th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, build a chord on that. The root, the tonic, is the 1st note, build a chord on that. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 chord. So 6, 4, 5. So when people talk about the 4 chord or the 5 chord or the 3 chord, they're basically talking about do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's that simple. It sounds complicated, but it really isn't. Yeah, this overlapping vocal thing is really cool. I'm not quite over it. Very effective. But back to this vocal hook. It's coming up. I call it like a tag or a hook rather than a chorus, because the context is often changing. They're using it in different bits of the song, if that makes sense. So on that snare, there's like a clap being played on top of it, so I don't know, again, if this is samples or if it's through like a click track. We're going to pop that back. This is a really boring... yeah, I know, I've set the bar low for that, but can always go lower. Right, so here in the back there is a bottle of water, you'll notice in that bottle of water it has a cap and a straw sticking out of it. So the cap will be tight with the straw, and that's so you can just kind of drink it without fear of knocking it over and destroying all your pedals or creating a slippy patch on the floor for someone to fall over on. Yeah, it's really, this vocal distortion is really effective, and again it's this tag once again in a slightly different context, so there's different things going on musically when it pops up. And they're like an organ, kind of Hammond organ, maybe like John Lord from Deep Purple style sound on the keyboards. And this is something I hadn't really picked up on, but the panning of the vocals is also effective, making sure they have their own space. But that was cool. So there's a nice trading with the vocals and the piano. A call and response. And then here, I'm assuming this is just a sample being played because the pitch goes down. Yeah. So they've probably taken one of their voices and bumped it down like an octave or something like that. So just made it lower. And we've got a solo here. So I haven't really heard this guitarist do anything or noticed them pop up on the screen. Oh, because they've been a singer and now they've just picked up a guitar. I recognise the trousers. That's what's happened there. Yeah, so I don't know what brand of guitar this is. I thought it was maybe a Vigier. I just think it's a French one, but it's one I don't recognise. Yeah, so pretty kind of straightforward solo there, ending on a nice bend. Sustaining it, and then a kind of cool trading solo thing going on. So doing a trem picking with this very, very scratchy sound, almost like a kind of Dick Dale Miserly? So how do you you know the Dick Dale song? I was never sure how to pronounce that. Miserly? Yeah, cool. And again, just a kind of standard solo here. The scratchy sound and the lack of gain does make it difficult to play these things. You have to be very accurate if you want every note to be pristine. Boom, 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 boom. So that motif we had before, is it in the same key? Of course that's it. So that's the idea we had before when we changed key here. I think we're still in the same key as before. So that'd be in yeah, so we're gonna yeah, so we're in E minor here, so this will be in the B played there. Can you hear it on the piano? Yeah, there was a cool guitar toss there. Yeah, nice one. Nice stage move. There's a little teddy bear there. Yeah, cool guitar toss. You need to commit to that, otherwise, you know, it's going to knock you in the head. So there's a teddy bear and there's a sad little water bottle in the background as well. What's the lore with that? What's going on? Cool, and I think we've still got the one guitar. I don't think she's doing any rhythm here. No. It's also clever editing, so we know who's singing when they go between them like this, because, you know, when you've got someone playing an instrument, it's not like a boy band or a band where they've all got their headsets in and they can walk to the front of the stage. You can't do that when you've got people playing, you know, keyboards that are stuck behind a mountain of gear. Yeah, that was cool. There's distortion on both the vocals there and interesting timbres. With the distortion, it kind of changes how you might sing notes as well. I'll put that back because if you listen to the vowel sounds that are being made, just coming up here. If you kind of lean into the more and make a kind of more of a sound, so more nasally, it can make the distortion effect kind of clip more and make interesting sounds. So if you're singing with this effect on, it can impact how you like enunciate words, you know, like the famous one of Justin Timberlake, it's going to be May, that kind of thing. The effect will act differently to kind of different vowel sounds. That's the best way I can describe it. So it's just interesting to me how these small details and things that you wouldn't necessarily think about when you're writing the song can kind of work its way in there and start to change the song just in little ways that wouldn't necessarily have happened otherwise. The vocals being doubled by the keyboard there, which is quite interesting. Yeah, almost like an Journey, Don't Stop Believing. Then we've got the distorted vocals coming back in. Yeah, down to the vocals, everything back in. I really like this raised bit at the front as well for the singer to kind of get up on and use as a prop. So it's a cool one. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing for the. I still don't think that's totally right for that little high synth line. Well, I'll play up the octave and see if that sounds better. A wee bit more authentic, but I don't think I've heard that quite right. Yeah, and almost like a kind of. There's a Pixie song in particular the guitar reminded me of. Yeah. So the song is Dead by the Pixies. And interestingly, there's a kind of distortion on the vocals here that I hadn't previously picked up on. The hundreds of times I've listened to this album previously. But back to the actual song at hand. Yeah, and then moving up the semitone there on the guitar, making things really edgy. It's weird, they're mixing together a lot of really uneasy elements, like this kind of scratchy guitar and that moving up the semitone and these kind of distorted vocals and a kind of chaos, but it's packaged somehow in a very oddly accessible way. And there you can really hear the distortion on. Like there when you went wah, when you hear that kind of sound, that's the sort of noise you might over exaggerate in the microphone when you know that effect's on because it's going to sound cool. It's just a lot of layers going on, a lot of complexity put into it here. And just finishing off with the vocals on a huge stabs. Yeah, cool. Dun, dun, dun. What's very interesting there is the instruments, guitars, bass and drums are accenting certain notes from the hook, the tag, but not all of it. Bum, 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 bum. I think that's what it was doing. Yeah. So rather than going dun 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 dun, they're doing that kind of more stabby thing, and it's just more effective, isn't it? It doesn't feel as busy and feels much more pronounced. And if you watch the bassist there, they're really making sure they lock in with the drummer for that. If you watch here, yeah, making eye contact, making sure they're both playing it exactly as is. Will this video see the light of day? Who knows? If there's more songs from this band you'd like me to check out, I would be well up for it, provided it can get through the very draconian blocking system here. Hit me up in the comments. Patreon.com/JBFmusic is the best way to support the channel if you have the inclination and means to do so. But cheers guys, hope you're having a good one.